Well, good morning, everybody. It is Tuesday, October 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, and I am here at the shop, totally alone. Camera crew not here. Don't know what's going on. So I can't even find my equipment that I use to put this up on my little tripod. So I can't even start this by myself. I just hope that everybody's okay and they're not here. But here's what I'm going to try to talk to you about. We're going to talk about half square triangles. There is, that's my favorite block. It was the first block I ever learned to make, and I love it, and I do a lot of quilts with it. A lot of times I'm walking and talking and looking at the same time. What I do a lot of times when we have shop hops and we get, especially the Charming shop hop, we didn't get to have it this year, but when we do the Charming shop hop, we have to use the charm squares. Where did they put my stuff? Anyway, so I loved using these half square triangles with charm packs because they're so little, but they work out well. Well, what I'm going to talk about today, and I don't know how well I'm going to do holding it with one hand, is there's different ways to make half square triangles. Now, we all know, I think we all know about, I'm going to use my board over here, so that way I'm going to turn this around. So here's how I was always taught to do half square triangles. You have your fabric, and then that's the right side looking up at us. And then you take the other piece of fabric, and I'm going to slide it over to the side, and I apologize for this because I'm working one-handed. I'm going to step back and show you. Okay, so basically what we're doing here is we're going to sew. This is the right side of the fabric looking up at us, and the right side is looking back. We want the right sides together. So then what happens is we'll put this on top of here, make them all even on the sides, and then what I do is I will draw a line diagonally, and then I'll sew 1/4 inch on each side of that. So does everybody understand what I'm talking about? Let me get I didn't have my rulers out or anything. So basically what I would do is I would draw a line diagonally. I'd take my ruler and draw a line diagonally. I'd have a solid line, and then you're going to sew 1/4 inch on each side of that line, because when you cut on that line and you open your triangle up, because remember we've sewn it now, we've cut it apart, so now you have your half square triangle. So that's the basic, boom, that's a half square triangle in case anybody's curious what I'm talking about. That is a half square triangle. Now, what I tell people is there's math to all of this, and that's what gets confusing. Is it's real simple and easy, but if you need a certain size in that block, you need to know the math. So what I tell people, especially when we did that our quilt in the Quilt Sampler magazine in 2018 was all squares and half square triangles. And I remember whenever I submitted I'm going to turn around real quick. When I submitted the pattern, the designers or the people who tested my pattern didn't like my math, but my math to me was easier. They like to use 7/8 a lot. Like I would say, if you want your block to end up at 9.5, you start with a 10-inch block. But they like to take the 7/8 into it. So they would say, oh, you don't start out with a 10-inch block, you start out with a 9 7/8. Nope, 10 inches. I make it easy. I would rather have to trim off a little bit than to have to add to it. So I was trying to see if that quilt was out here, because we do have it out. It's probably under a Halloween one. Nope, imagine that. They've moved it too. I swear. I love my people, but I can't ever find anything in this place. Okay, so anyway, so this is a basic half square triangle. So the math for this would be if you wanted this to end up being a 10-inch square, as is, when you start, you wanted this to be 11.5, and you wanted this to be 11.5. Because what happens is every seam takes off 1/4 inch. So you just took off a 1/2 inch. So if you wanted this to be a 10-inch square, you start with 10.5. Start with 10.5 if you want it to be a 10-inch square. So that's how we make the basic square. Now, I'm going to fold this back, and here's the problem. If I sew, if I sew, I can't hold the camera and sew. So let me try this. I'm going to try it anyway. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to turn it around. And then I have the math for all of this. There are different ways to make half square triangles. There is the way we just showed you that makes one half square triangle. And then there's the way that Jenny Doan has taught people to make half square triangles. And I'm going to turn this around. And basically what she does is she takes these same squares, she puts them right sides together. She puts them right sides together, and she sews all the way around, and then she cuts them on the diagonal. So let me see if I can do that. Of course I don't have the right foot on. That would make my life so much easier. Well, you know what? This is how I do it. If I can't find my 1/4 inch foot, on this machine, which I love, we can't get these anymore. They actually stopped making them, which is so sad. But this is my stitch width right here. So I'm going to hit this button to get under stitch width, and I'm going to make it all the way to the right. And that way, it gives me pretty much a 1/4 inch. See how that foot just moved all the way over? Instead of being in the center where the red dot is, it's over here. It gives me my 1/4 inch. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to attempt to sew and hold the camera at the same time. All right, so we're going to sew our 1/4 inch, and I started a 1/4 inch from the end. So we're going to sew our 1/4 inch. Who was on here last? My Lord. Take us forever to sew something. So then I get right about a 1/4 inch from the end. Needle down. I'm going to pick it up, pivot it around. I probably could go one more stitch. Let me go one more stitch. Boom. All right, we're going to pivot it around. And this is how you make four half square triangles at once. Hopefully you can hear me while this is running. The bad part about this block, is when you cut these apart, all of your triangle edges are now on the bias. And ladies, when you work with the bias, it's like working with the devil. It is just going to stretch and pull. And so let me do one more stitch. I think I'm doing pretty good one-handed. All right, so let's try this again. So we're going to keep sewing. But Jenny Doan is the one, I believe, the first time I saw this is the one who showed us. And please ignore my seams. Again, I'm doing this one-handed. Okay. So then we're going to drop it again. Somebody will be here shortly. Okay. So now we have all four sides sewn together. I need to go get me a larger ruler. Because I got everything over here. Okay. And again, like my Quilter Select rulers, we have some new ones on order. So now what we're going to do, now some people like to draw the lines, like they would draw a line diagonally here and here. I don't draw a line because I just kind of figure out, well, I'll just lay my ruler diagonally. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it on that point there. And I'm going to do this and put it up there, 1 point there, 1 point there. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut. I'm going to lay this down for a second to cut. I'll put it on the ceiling so nobody thinks that we just went off air. So now what I'm going to do, let me put it back on this. So I've cut the one diagonally. See that? Cut it diagonally. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut it the other way diagonally. So you see I got my ruler on that point there and my ruler on that point there. Okay. So now I'm going to cut. I don't know if you see me cut or not. Okay, so now I have cut 4. I'm even going to try to press these open. I'll burn myself. But if you can see, we now have 4 half square triangles. And this is nice if you're doing something, I'm going to go over to the board here. And this is nice if you're doing something that requires lots of half square triangles, you can get a bunch made at once. And then you go back and you press to the dark side. You press to the dark side, and you may have to trim it up a bit. And that's the nice thing about this. You can always trim it up a little bit if you need to. And I'm just going to show you some of the things in case new people are watching that you can do with half square triangles. Like I said, we have a lot of them here at the shop. And again, I apologize for such horrible camera work because I can't do it all. Okay, so here's 4 half square triangles. Here's some things you can do with that, is you can actually make them into pinwheels. And basically what you do with the pinwheel is you take that block and you go like this. Like if that was the block, and every time you go over one, you turn it. Oh, I think I hear someone at the door. Yay. So then we go like this, and then we turn it like this. And then our last one, we're going to turn like this, and we've now made a pinwheel. You want to be my camera lady? Sure. I can't find any of my equipment, so you're just going to have to hold the phone. But anyway, ladies, Cindy's here. So anyway, here's what we do, and this is how you can make like a pinwheel. Okay, just hold it like on, I don't know where that handle is.
Okay, that's fine.
But the speakers, if you cover that, they can't hear me, so just try not to. Okay. So yay, we have Cindy here. So here's something you can do with pinwheels. Another thing you can do too is you can make nice little. You can make different things like that. Like this would be the next one. Like if you were making these lines to a quilt, this would be your next row. The fun thing about these is just to turn them around, and you can get so many different things out of half square triangles. But anyway, the reason I don't like this method is because, like I said, this is now on your bias, and this is where you're going to be sewing. And so this is where you can stretch super easy. All right, but I'm going to leave this up on the board. Okay, I'm going to take this back real fast.
Okay, got it.
Now that she's here, I'm going to not need her for a second. I'll let her do something over there. Did you need to put anything away or anything? Okay, so what we're going to do is, no, that's not it. So this is, I have the math for everything. So this is the chart, and I will put this on Facebook. That if you want to, this is if you want your unfinished block. What they mean by unfinished block is your block that's not sewn in. So if you want your block to end up at 1 inch, then you're going to have to start with your square at 1.75. Does that make sense? If you want it to be 2 inches, then you're going to have a square that's going to end up at 3.25. Or you can do the math, which I don't like to do the math. But if you do this and it works, I did it last night, I tested it. So if this is what you want your block to be end up at, this is like the white and the orange block we started with. That's what you would start with, and you would end up with a 1 inch unfinished block. So when you sewed it in, it would be a ½ inch finished block. Sure. Cindy's looking at me like, okay, whatever. Okay, so this is the math for the 4 at a time half square triangles. So now what we're going to do is the 8 at a time half square triangles. And again, I will post this on Facebook. That'll be on our Facebook page. All right. Have we lost anybody yet? I'm going to just scroll back real fast because I've been so trying to manipulate the phone with one hand. All right, no questions yet. Yes, Susan, you don't even know the stuff you can do with half square triangles. Okay, so here's this again. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do 8 half square triangles at a time. There are different ways to do half square triangles, and now we're going to do 8 at a time. And I like this better because it doesn't end up on the bias. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go like this. We're going to match our sides together. I'm going to take my pen and my big long ruler. Now, if I just had to cut on this line, I wouldn't draw a line, but I have to sew 1/4 inch on each side. So, hopefully I'm drawing a line. No, I made a dash. There's a little dash down there. Now, some people, I use anything. I'm not scared of anything. I probably should be. But some people use Frixon pens on these because you can iron on the Frixon and it disappears. I use pencil or pen or whatever's handy. because I'm going to cut on this, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over here to my machine, and I'm going to sew 1/4 inch on each side of this. Get my pedal here. I'm so glad Cindy showed up. I was doing this one-handed, it was not going well.
I bet.
Okay, so we're going to sew that one this way. I'm going to flip it around, do it again. And basically I'm keeping my, the line I drew on the right side where my 1/4 inch is being measured. And then this way, when you cut these triangles, they are not on the bias. So I like this way better than the 4 square way. And I'll show you some other things you can do with half square triangles too if we have time today. Because there's so many neat things that when you do half square triangles and you can put them back together and you get hourglass blocks. Or I might just have to save that for another class. Another Teaching Tuesday. Okay, I know everybody's thinking, you're only going to get 4 out of that. Nah, they don't know. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut right here. And I'm going to cut right here. And now I'm going to cut here.
On your line, right?
Right on my line. And now I have 8 half square triangles. Not on the bias. So now we have 8 half square triangles. Now I love this method because, like I said, you get 8 at one time. And there's actually math to tell you how to do that. And of course that's the whole reason for this tutorial video or whatever, is to show you how to do it. But then if you don't have the math to do it, then you're like, but what if I need a 4-inch square? What do I start with? So that's what I want to show everybody. But I just want to show you that you do have 8 of these half square triangles. You just have to fold them all over. So here's the math for that. And again, I'll put this on Facebook. Using the finished size half square triangle you would like, for instance, 3 inches, you would, if you wanted this to end up at 3 inches, you would add 7/8 inch, or you would make it 3.875, and then multiply times 2, and that would give you the beginning size of the square. So if you wanted this to end up being at 3 inches, you would add 0.875, multiply times 2, which gives you 7.75 inches. That's the size white square and orange square that you begin with. It's beautiful, and I've done it. I've tested the math. So this is something you might even cut out and stick to something as a little cheat sheet, or print off it and put it with this chart. It works every time. It works every time, because I tested it more than once, because I wanted to make sure before I got on here, because as soon as I did, there'd be somebody who goes, it doesn't work if you want this size square. So I wanted to make sure I knew what I was talking about. So that's what we do. That's what we've done so far. We've done the 1 half square triangle. We've done the 4 half square triangles that I do not recommend, because you're going to have your sewing edges on the bias, and that is going to cause you issues. It just will. I just will. So the final half square triangle, you can shoot my face.
There we go.
What was I going to say? Cindy a lot of times always would get this, like my boobs and my fat belly. It's like, ooh, I have a face too. So anyway, is there any questions by anybody so far on half square triangles?
Let's see.
Because I'm telling you right now, this is going to be life-changing. When you really get into some patterns they call for, put it this way. Years ago, I had this quilt, and it's still up on top. If you walk in the shop, it's straight ahead. It's up on one of the little vignettes up there. And I opened it up, and it called for like 283 half square triangles. And I just shut the book, and I said, I'm giving that to somebody who can do those. And I gave it to Brenda Hebel, because she does stuff like that and enjoys it. She used these things called thangles or triangles on a roll. You can get those. And they're paper that you would just lay on your fabric, and you sew on the lines and then cut them out.
We had them here somewhere.
We don't have them anymore, because
Okay.
I think, I personally Listen, I'm one of these people, if I don't pin, you know I ain't going to pin paper to fabric if I can just go ahead and do it myself. But some people like those, and that's fine. That's fine. I don't personally like it because that's another step that I have to do. Then I have to take the paper off. I don't know if you pin it or iron it on. I think there's different kinds. I think I used them one time and hated them. And I'm talking back when the quilt bug was open, taking Janet Disbrow's class. Hated it. So anyway, see, that's when your fingers cover the microphone. Right
sorry.
Here. That's the one.
Okay.
You got to get them off the microphone.
Okay.
Oh, there you go. See, I thought we'd have the handle.
Oh.
But we can't find the handle nowhere. Okay. Anyway, so the last thing we're going to show you is how to make half square triangles with jelly roll strips. That's all right. Do you know where the handle is? I can't find anything. I had to start this by myself. Luckily, Cindy came in. I'm just glad you're all not in a ditch.
I'm sorry.
That's all right.
In a ditch halfway here.
That's all right. Don't worry about it. We're cool. We're good.
Yeah, all good.
Evidently, I can do some things one-handed. So the next thing, and I didn't cut whole jelly roll strips. I just kept with this. But if you have jelly roll strips and you want to make them into squares, there's math to that too. I'm just going to tell you what it is because the form. I know I can't find anything. I can't find. Even my big tripod, I couldn't find it.
Here, I'll look. You want to take it?
You want to hold this?
Yeah.
'Cause-
I got.
Okay.
I keep.
There we go.
Okay.
Good.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm here, people.
Now we have banter.
Yes, will there be banter?
I'm just worried about getting everybody else.
So another thing to do is another way to make them is with strips. And this is 2.5 inch strip, but the math for this, I kid you not. If you and when you put 2.5 inch strips together and we cut them out, you're going to get 2 inch half square triangles. So what I tell everybody is just add a 1/2 inch. So if you want a 3 inch, cut your strips at 3.5 inch. Their math was, I kid you not, find the square root of 2 and multiply times 5. 500 word square root.
No.
Add a 1/2 inch.
There you go.
1/2 inch. I loved math. I didn't understand why we'd have to add a square root and multiply times 5. That's crazy. Crazy. Okay. So let's see. These are our, and if anybody has a question, because I'm throwing a lot at them here, we're going to sew our, and this is my foot. I couldn't even change feet. So we're going to sew a 1/4 inch, which you can see I'm not really sewing a 1/4 inch. Now I am. And we're going to flip it around. This may or may not work because of my
Foot.
I couldn't change the feet with one hand. All right. We sew it all 4 sides like we did on the four one.
Yeah, that 4 one.
The 4 one. Now, since we're using such a little fabric, I got out my little ruler.
Where?
A little Quilting Select ruler. We're going to be having a special coming up that when you buy a certain amount of Quilter Select product, you get one of these free.
Yay!
Free stuff.
Free stuff. I love
Okay.
free stuff.
So what we're going to do now is we're going to take this little ruler here and we're going to take this point just under that line. See what I'm saying? That seam right there, we don't want to go in it. We're just barely going to go like this.
So Lola Purvis, the math on the 8 at a time fascinates her. She's really going to try it.
It fascinates me that I can make 8 of anything at a time. And then we're going to take this just below that seam because we want our half square triangles to show up or open up. And then we're going to do it again. Can they see what I'm doing here? Can you get a good shot of that?
Oh, I got a good shot.
See how it's
Like
right
there.
below that seam? Boom. Look at that. Look at all them. All right.
Oh.
Look at that half square triangle. Now,
That's right. The crowd is screaming.
now let me check my math again because I may have said something wrong. Because now we have a 3-inch triangle. We started off with 2.5 inch. It's 5. I'm gonna have to redo the math on that. Let me look at my paper here. See what it says. What does my paper say? Oh, here it is. Here it is. You will want to be careful when handling these square triangles. This method will be cut on the bias more prone to stretch. That's it. Because it says we will be sewing 2.5-inch strips to make 2.5-inch unfinished half square triangles, which will be 2-inch finish. That's a lie. I didn't copy that because these were 2.5 inches when I started. Let me double check my math here. These were 2.5. Well, they were before I cut them apart. And that is not a 2.5 inch. That's a 3.
No, that's a 3.
That's a 3-incher.
That's a 3-incher.
That's a 3-incher. So let's think of how we can come up with this. So I guess I'm supposed to trim this down. I think that's what you're expecting me to trim it down. I hate trimming it down. But I'm thinking it's 5.5 and it's 3. We lost 1.5 inches, which is 0.75. Again, add 0.75 for each inch you want to go up, I guess.
Sure.
I'll find out that one on that. But again, I don't promote this one because guess what? We're on the bias again. We're on the bias again. And I'm telling you folks, when you start sewing these together on the bias and you pull the least little bit, oh, you're going to have headaches. Now, another thing I was going to tell people, like I was showing them how you do your pinwheels. You go like that. Love pinwheels. Same thing. Do like that. You go like that. But this is a way to make little ones. But I'm telling you what, if you can, let's think about it. If you're using a jelly roll strip 42 inches and you've got a bunch of those, you could get maybe, I don't know, 8, 10, 15.
Out of the one strip?
Out of the one
Or
strip.
putting the two strips together.
Yeah, because you got 42 inch thing, and these are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. So you're going to get 10 of these out of that strip, and it's on the bias. So I'm telling you right now, I vote for the 8 one. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. You're going to get 2 less, but it's not going to be on the bias. So that's what I say. You'll see this a lot of times. I think it's in Fons and Porter magazine that how to do it on a jelly roll strip, and they use red and white fabric, and it's on the bias. I'll put it out there, but I say thumbs down. Thumbs down. This is the 8 one. This is my favorite. And that's it right there. You're going to zoom in on it?
Oh, yeah.
Zoom in on
Don't
that.
go down too far.
Yeah. Or don't go up too high and get that double chin in there. Or triple chin. But I told him I put all this, and then here is if you want to do the 4 at a time, but again, you end up with a bias edge on that. So I'm thinking either do it the single way like we always did during 48 and 48. We'd do it, yeah.
Yeah.
And but other than that, I'm thinking this one. If you got to make a lot of them, that's it. That's your way to go. And the worst thing that happens,
because it's cheaper too.
well, the thing is, if you use a 10-inch square on this, which a lot of people will for their layer cakes or whatever, I'd have to do the math and go backwards. And people, I've not had coffee yet, so I can't do the backward math. But I will do it, and I will put it on Facebook, and I will tell you what you're going to end up with if you start off with a 10-inch square. So that is our Tuesday Teaching Tuesday tips.
Tuesday tutorial.
Yeah. Now, because what I thought I would do is I'm going to kind of go over like basic blocks. So this was half square triangle. Next week we're going to go over flying geese and how to make flying geese. Because again, everybody knows how to make the one size they tell you in a pattern. But how do you make one that's 4-inch or 3-inch or 2-inch using the magic lazy girl way of making flying geese? You need to know the math. You've got to know the math. It's quilt math, people. And they don't tell you that because they want you to always have to buy a ruler. But I'm going to teach you how to do it without a ruler. So that's it for today on this wonderful Teaching Tuesday.
That's right. Bye.